That's fancy.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Hey, it's Gina with Rise Up from Trauma. How is everyone this evening? I'd like to welcome you again to another Monday episode of, again, Rise Up from Trauma. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, for supporting us week after week. And on this episode of Healing Strategies of Rise Up from Trauma, we have Tabitha Westbrook. She's a counselor and a coach from the Journey and the Process. So welcome, Tabitha.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are more than welcome. So this evening is something that every trauma survivor really needs to hear. So if you know a trauma survivor, you may want to just tap that share button and maybe just share it to them privately. But what Tabitha has kind of talked to us about a little bit about her, what she does, because her journey is just amazing. When I started talking to her and getting to know her, I was just amazed at the things that she's doing, what God has called her to do. And it's just absolutely amazing what she's doing for trauma survivors and a lot of people throughout the world and things like that. And so tonight, our topic is going to be getting back into the body after trauma. This is something that a lot of us really need. I mean, especially if you're a trauma survivor. I know for myself that getting back in and that connection can be very hard. So Tabitha, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about what you do, and then we'll just kind of transition slowly into some other things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a licensed therapist. And I am also a practice owner. So I have a practice with offices in the Dallas, Texas area and the Raleigh, North Carolina area. And I have counselors at both of my office locations. And we specialize in complex trauma. So like if it's literally the worst thing on planet Earth, that's what we do. That's what we help people heal from. So we love doing that. We are really highly trained trauma specialists, and that is our jam. We have a subspecialization in domestic abuse and coercive control in the church. A lot of my friends just call me alphabet soup because there's a lot of certifications and a whole bunch of letters, and we don't need to go through all that. If you want to Google me, you can Google me. There's all the things. I am a certified sex addiction therapist. So I work a lot in that space as well. And we just do a lot of healing, help a lot of people get out of the darkness and into light. That is kind of our favorite thing ever.
Oh, yeah. I love that because that's exactly what it's all about. We're all in the dark. We need to get into the light. So, yeah. So tell us, I love how you go in and you educate the churches and things like that, because I really think it's really important for the churches to be educated, especially when it comes to a lot of the abuse that takes place outside of church, maybe in church. So can you give us a little bit of information or go in as far as what you do when you go into the churches?
Yeah, so it depends on the context I'm coming in with, right? Am I coming in with a client or am I coming in? We are a huge ministry partner of Called to Peace Ministries, which is a domestic abuse ministry that serves the church. Just so everybody knows, tomorrow starts Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So if you ever had any questions, definitely be following Called to Peace and follow me as well, because we're all going to be talking about it. So if you're like, I don't even know what that means, we got you. But we help churches understand what abuse is, because it can be really tricky and sometimes confusing. And a lot of people use the term domestic violence, and that implies like somebody's getting smacked around or assaulted in some way. And I do want to just say, because we do have trauma survivors here, I am direct and I say stuff. And so I want to invite people to take good care of themselves. We are going to be talking about being in our bodies. If you feel like as I'm talking about something, you suddenly leave yours, maybe like press pause, take a step away, take care of you. You're the only you that you have. And so we want to make sure that you're taken care of. So if I talk about a hard topic and you're like, that's kind of close to home, take care of you. So, but we do help churches understand that, abuse isn't only physical or sexual, but it is a whole myriad of what we talk about as coercive control. And so that is essentially like taking the personhood away from someone else. If we kind of just distill it down into a base definition, it is, I own you and you're my property. And so the abuser is controlling the victim in every way. So financially, emotionally, there's a lot of gaslighting, and gaslighting is more, I think sometimes if we watch some of the TikToks, we get the wrong idea about things. but gaslighting is what makes you feel crazy. So it's like, oh, that didn't happen that way. You're misremembering. And abusive individuals can be really, really slick in how they talk about things. And so it makes it just really hard sometimes when you're like, well, I mean, I guess it could have been that way. Maybe I don't remember completely. And so you start to get turned upside down and doubt yourself. And they're like, my mom used to cook the best biscuits. It would be great if you were like her, and you're like, oh,
Ooh.
yeah, I mean, like I could try harder. And it's like, well, I mean, I was almost there. Right. And so like you find yourself in this like crazy making cycle. And so, and it can get more insidious than that, right? Like I have heard stories where people will be like, oh, it's just ADHD. It's like, well, you left every kitchen cabinet open 3 inches. Like that's not ADHD, that's intentional, right? And so, and those kinds of things, like somebody might go, well, that's no big deal. And you're right, one thing isn't a big deal. But when it is a pattern, it becomes a very big deal. And so that's what we teach churches to look for is, what is happening? Where's the pattern? Where's the power and control, which is a hallmark of abuse, right? One person has power over another and they're exercising it in wicked ways. And so we help them understand those dynamics. And it's not just good enough to recognize it, although we do believe once you see, you cannot unsee.
Right.
But we want them also to say, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to help people who are being victimized? And how are we going to call the abusive individual to repentance? Because I think it is absolutely unloving to just be like, well, yeah, that's a terrible thing you're doing. Good luck, Bob or Sally or whatever, right? Like, no, how about that's not the best for you? You could do something else and you're missing out on goodness and love when you do those things. So we want churches to have a holistic approach. We want to protect victims and call abusers to accountability. And so that's really what we're going in and doing and inviting them to be a partner in this work so that they have the resources that they need and the understanding that they need to really serve their people well.
Oh, that's good. I like that. And I'm glad that you do that. And they take that approach because again, how many people are going through that, but they're afraid to come out, or the churches or the churches know, but they don't approach the other part or the abuser and they don't approach him or her. And so it just continues until now they're like, we're leaving the church. And then the cycle just continues at another church. So
Right.
I like that they're able to approach them and at least lead them down a path of discovery, but a path of repentance and healing. Obviously they didn't get this way overnight. So,
Right.
And things like that too. It's just, it's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle.
It is.
So, so tell us a little bit about kind of like, I'm trying to think of how like the body, transitioning more, I guess, or however we want to do it into as trauma survivors, but there is a disconnect. There's a huge disconnect. And I know for myself, sometimes when I sit here and I do my non-clinical art and I'm like, man, like I don't know that anything's coming up for me until I look at my drawing and I was like, man, I was really ticked off. Like, hello, like, why didn't I feel anything? But it's interesting because I want to bring this up for a second because there is a disconnect when I'm doing things like that in trauma survivors. When I'm working on myself, there's a huge disconnect. But I was watching a portion of Inside Out 2. I hated that movie. Like I hated Inside Out 1 because I didn't understand what it was. And then all of a sudden one day it clicked, like because of my developmental trauma, it clicked one day and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like mental health. And so I only watched a portion of it and a couple of days ago with my daughter and anxiety had really festered up and all of a sudden I could feel myself starting to cry. And I was like, why am I crying? Like, what is going on? But what I did is that was me. And so that was me. And I was like, why can I cry like at a cartoon? But I can't even feel myself doing this art therapy that I'm doing. And so it was really interesting. And so I seen like, oh, I'm really disconnected. So I was so excited when you had chose that topic, not only for me, because I know there's a lot out there. So tell me a little bit more. How do we get started in this topic?
Absolutely. So I think the really important thing is like, well, how do we get here to begin with? Right.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people are like, well, I mean, like, I obviously have a body because I'm not just a puddle and I can
Yeah.
see and touch and right. Like, we're like right
Yeah.
here. Um, but we get disconnected and it is actually a gift. So I think it gets a bad rap, right? Especially if we have developmental trauma, man. Like, that is something that so for people who don't know the term, in case anyone's listening and doesn't, developmental trauma is the junk that happens when we're a kid. And it can be big T trauma like death, loss, murder, someone dying by suicide, all kinds of things, right? But then there are little T traumas, which is an uncaring, unkind household where there is, emotional abuse and that sort of thing. And one is like, yes, like I obviously have been through something. And the other one is more subtle sometimes, and we call it death by 1,000 paper cuts. Another therapist that I know talks about like, yes, I can like slice you up with a samurai sword, and everybody's going to be like, yeah, that was bad. Or I can take a toothpick, and if I poke you enough times in the right places, I can take you out. And a lot of times developmental trauma is death by toothpick pokes as well, because it's like, oh, well, my mom doesn't really like me, or it's unkind to me, or my dad is absent. And it's like by all accounts, everyone's like, well, I mean, you should be okay, right? And it's like, but you're not, right? Because
Right.
you have not gotten the attachment and the care and the kindness that you needed to be able to flourish. And so, in those places when there are really hard things happening, like physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, all of those things, we start to disconnect from our bodies because we don't know what to do with it. Or if we've had childhood sexual abuse, things like that, we go, you know what? And God in his mercy created it so that we will shut down, so we can survive. So it is a survival mechanism. And when
Mhm.
we get to be adults, sometimes we just don't know how to come back online until we get healed and get into the healing process. And it can be really freaky for people because they're like, no, 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 no. I have protected myself forever by just staying up here. And I'm not getting into the rest of this now. Like, we are not doing that. But it's super important to healing because we're not heads on a stick. Like, we're
Right.
like whole human beings. And so we want to be able to really have our whole selves present with us. And our bodies, and this is, definitely a tough space to kind of, um, for some people to understand or to feel, especially if your body's been vilified. And I would say this happens with both men and women, that our bodies are critiqued and criticized. We may hear about it more with women. I know that there are men that feel this as well. And so it's like, I'm not good enough. Like, I don't look like Farrah Fawcett, or gosh, I just dated myself, holy Toledo. Kim Kardashian. It's like, man, I got to get a Gen Z example up in here, holy Toledo. Like, but like, like I don't look like any of those people, or Charlie XC. There's a lot of letters in that one. But like, I don't look like any of those people.
Yeah.
So like, I must not be okay, And so you come to these conclusions that my body is not a good body, except our bodies really are good bodies. And they do so much for us. First of all, none of us would be here without a body unless you are a ghost. If you are a ghost, and you can type in the chat, I am impressed. But my guess is we don't have any apparitions with us this evening. So,
Yeah.
we're all here in physical form. And that's a good thing, right? That gives us so much. Like, our bodies are what hug other people, right?
Yes.
um, one of my friends, who is a delight, told me once, your body has the best amount of squish for hugs. And I was like, that is so incredible. It made me feel so loved and also so
Oh,
beautiful, right? Because,
yeah.
sometimes as a fluffier lady, you don't always feel that cute. And so when
Right.
she's like, I was like, oh, thank you. I have the best squish. That's perfect. you know? And
Oh,
so, but we vilify ourselves. And so we get
yeah.
out of our bodies because of the trauma. And then we don't want to get back in because we're not super sure that we want to talk to our bodies to begin with. And our society is definitely like, just stay in your head. We don't need to do that feeling stuff. Like, let's not
Right.
bother with that. And so we end up living what is essentially a half life, that, just in our heads. And we're like, why am I like doing this amazing artwork and I feel nothing? And so inviting ourselves into our bodies is a key through that. And it really does tell us a ton and leads us toward healing.
Nice. So, so how do you invite?
Well, first, you got to take a little risk. So if you
Okay.
haven't talked to your body in a while, you have to kind of invite yourself there and know that it's worth
Okay.
doing. If you are a person who's had developmental trauma and you're like, you know what, I can't remember my childhood, I will tell you that when you start to invite yourself back into your body, you may have memories. And if they're big and scary or something really bad, definitely go see a therapist. Get
Yep.
some support. You don't have to do that alone. I would encourage you not to, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Have somebody with you that knows how to walk you through things because it's not uncommon. If you're like, yeah, man, my like whole childhood is Swiss cheese. Yeah, there's probably some stuff, right? Because again, our brains
Right.
shut some stuff down so that we could be safe. And
Hmm.
now that you're older, you're safe enough to, experience it and all of that. And so as you orient to your body, then you might, have some things come up. I
Yep.
just don't want anybody to be surprised if they're like, I started feeling all these things happened. Um, so once we kind of invite ourselves to that place, then it's really a matter of practicing a little bit. And you do not have to like go big or go
Okay.
home. This is not basketball. It is not football. It is embodied living and it is healing. And it is way
Okay.
slower than we want because this is not McDonald's. Right? We are not going to get
Right.
our burger in 2 minutes. We are not going to get there. And if you're like,
No.
yeah, man, I've had like trauma my whole life or some really big stuff happen, um, my, it's going to take a minute. And it's okay that it takes a minute.
Right.
We always tell the reason that my practice is the journey and the process is very intentional because we're on a journey and we're all in process. And
Yeah.
so everybody's process looks a little different. So you don't want to look at, Billy down the street and be like, well, I mean, he only, did XYZ and he's fine. It's like, well, you don't know Billy's story. You don't know if Billy worked all the way through it. You don't know. All you know
Right.
is your own story. And it's okay to be where you are, right? This is progress, not perfection. This is not a race. You do not get a gold medal for like therapizing or healing faster. Like
Right.
that's not a thing. It is not Olympic sports. So we invite slow, we go slow. I always tell my new interns because everybody that's coming out of graduate school is like, we want to heal the world. And I'm like, I love that for you. And we will. We're just gonna go a lot slower than you think. And they're like, I don't understand. I feel like I didn't do anything in that session. I'm like, did you connect with them? Did you help them move a little bit? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, then you did amazing. It's great, you know,
Absolutely.
because it is slow and we can't go too
It is.
fast or we wouldn't be able to handle it. So
Right.
start with that
Right.
invitation going, all right, I want to try this. And then you try a little something to get in. So
Okay.
I am willing to try a few things with people who are watching if they are willing. And
Okay.
any embodied practice is an invitation. So I am not obviously, I don't believe in coercive control or oppression. So I
Right.
invite you to it. So if you start to do something and you're like, that does not feel good to me, that's scary, I can't handle the feelings, stop. Like you're not going to be in trouble. You are not going to get a failing grade on this live. We are not grading anyone.
Yes.
I can't see your beautiful faces. I wish I could. That would be fun. But
It would be.
no one is going to know that you had to take a break, step away, take a breath, whatever, right? Or that this didn't work for you. And you can try a bunch of different things until you find the ones that feel safe enough right now, right? And then you can expand. It's called expanding your window of tolerance. And that is
Yep.
how much stuff can I deal with, right?
Yes.
So think about a window. How much can get through a window that's like yay big? It's not a lot, right? And it's tiny, tiny. So we want to help it grow a bit.
Yes.
And we do that through practice, right? It's embodied practice. And there are lots of books out there about these sorts of things. And I'll name a few of them here in a bit. But to start, if you are okay with it, just notice your breath. So we're just going to sit for a second. So kind of get comfy. If you're on the couch or the bed, or if you're in your car, don't get too comfy. If you're listening to us stream from your vehicle, I have questions, but also be safe. Pull over if you want to do this. And also I say that half joking, but trauma survivors, man, sometimes we don't have a safety button. We're like, I don't know, it'll be fine. And so I just want to invite you to be safe, right? So if you're driving, please stop doing that if you're going to do this exercise. So if you can put your feet flat on the floor, that's great. If not, just be super comfortable, kind of be unpretzeled, which is body parts, crossed and what have you. And just take a minute to breathe and just notice. And you don't have to fix your breathing or make it different. Be where you are. If you notice some emotions or even a resistance and you want to run away, that's okay. We're just going to notice it. We're not going to judge it. Trauma survivors also are very judgy of oneself. So we're going to try to avoid that too. So if you're able, maybe let your breath get a little bit deeper. And just notice if you can breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And if you're like, my nose is stuffy, I cannot, that's okay too. Just breathe in and breathe out. And just notice. You might notice some tears. You might want to laugh. You might think, this is ridiculous. It's all fine. Just notice. And if you can, notice as you take the breath in, feel it through your nose or your mouth, whichever one you're able to breathe in through. Just notice what it feels like a little bit. Notice what it feels like to have that air pass into your body. And then now notice what it feels like to breathe out through your mouth. Does it feel cooler? Does it feel warmer? Just think about what you can notice. And if, again, emotions come up, that's okay. If they don't come up, you're not broken. That's also okay. Sometimes our bodies are like, are we sure we're doing this? And it takes a minute. That's totally fine. So whenever you're ready, if you're like, okay, that was enough, that was fine, and you can totally stop and just kind of sit with yourself for a second and go, gosh, what was that like for me? Was it easy? Was it more challenging? Did I notice emotions I didn't expect? Did I notice thoughts I didn't expect? Our brain is actually part of our body. It's a whole thing. And whatever it is, no judgies, we just notice. And so if you're able to participate in that, that is your first invitation to embodied practice. So you noticed your nose and your breath. You might have noticed how you're sitting in your body. You might have noticed your chest rising and falling or stomach rising and falling, depending on how deep those breaths were. All kinds of things could have been noticed. A lot of trauma survivors are like, yes, I have a body. I can see it, feel it, attached, but I am not a body. I don't feel like I'm in it. And so this is helping you get back in it so your body can tell you important things. And I will tell you, this is practice, some of it, right? Like, so as you do different things and you're like, wow, that was easier or harder or whatever. There's one that I learned a million years ago. And I was sitting in a group because, like, here's how you learn therapy things. You have to go do them. So they are done to you or you do them yourself. Like, this is how this works. So I'm in a group of therapists trying to look cool because, right, we're trying to do that. Let's be honest, we all try to look cool. And they're like, notice your feet. And I was like, well, I walked in here, but I can't find my feet right now. I noticed the bottoms of your feet. And I was like, oh no, I don't know where those went. And I literally had a panic attack because I couldn't find my feet. I opened my eyes at one point, looked down, and I was like, yeah, they're still there, but I can't feel them. And so I was freaking out. I'm a therapist. And then I realized, oh, okay, maybe I need to be kinder and gentler to myself and practice. And so I practiced. And even now, just retelling the story, Dina, the first thing I instantly notice is the bottoms of my feet every time now. Because I had to get there, but it took weeks because I had not fully oriented to my own body as a trauma survivor. And so it was like, I clearly have feet because I can see them, but I cannot find them when I notice them. And so it did take a while. So if you're like, okay, makes some sense. I thought I was broken. You're not. You just need to orient to your body because you're used to not being in it.
Right. Oh yeah, I think that's interesting. I guess thinking about like your feet. Wow, that's huge.
Yeah. There's some funnel exercises where you notice like your body. One of them is, can you notice the space between your eyes? Which I can now. Also had to practice. And if everybody just went, there is space between my eyes. Yeah, it's like right here.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a trippy thing until you bring your awareness and your attention to it.
Right. There's a lot. So there's several different things then for embodied living then to kind of connect you into doing it. So yeah. So in the chat, we have a few. How many of you did that exercise? Just put a thumbs up. And if you feel like sharing, if something came up, where I'm just curious, if you don't mind sharing. I was reading where I can't remember what it said, like vulnerability builds strength. Actually, so yeah. So I know this is a moment of that, but if you would be more than happy to share and stuff like that too. So yeah, because I think and I know for me, it is scary. It's scary to being in survival mode for so long and then going back and going, yeah, like, do I really want to feel my body? Do I really want to feel this? And it's like, yeah, okay. But it is. I think you get to a point, like you said, that you're just kind of surviving and thriving a little bit, but you really want to thrive. And these are really a lot of the good connections that your body really does need to be able to, I want to say heal more on a deeper level, more inner, and things like that too. And so if you're just healing on the surface and you haven't peeled back those layers, you're just literally working on the surface and not peeling anything back. And so I really like this. I really like the embodied living and embodied living exercises and practicing that to really get into there. So
absolutely.
Well,
and our bodies keep the score. So they know what's up, sometimes faster than our brains. And it is not uncommon for me to be in therapy with someone and for them to say, I don't know what's happening, because they're feeling and their brain has not caught up with the what in the heck happened, right? And so they're feeling these things, right? But as you learn, then you will understand, like, oh, my body's saying this to me. It's kind of like a check engine light, where it just like doesn't tell you exactly what. You have to kind of sit with it and ask, but it does give you data like, hey, something's up here. It's like, for example, if you start to feel shame, and I can tell you, I know exactly what shame feels like in my body because I've hung out with it and gotten curious about it. Sometimes I haven't been nice about it. Most of the time I try to be. Just depends on the day. None of us are perfect. Again, progress, not perfection, no matter who you are. But for me, shame starts with this tingly feeling on my skin, like under my skin. And then it crawls up the back of my head and around my face. And I get red and my face gets hot. And so, like, if I'm feeling shame, like, as soon as I start to feel it crawl up my back, I'm like, oh, I know what this is. Right. And it doesn't always stop the process. It just tells me, like, this is shame. What's happening right now? I need to ask myself what's going on and give myself a little bit of space and kind of figure it out, and that's totally fine. And I can sit with that and go, oh, you know what? I feel like I messed something up, or I hurt someone's feelings, or even if I didn't hurt their feelings, right? I might have hurt anybody's feelings, and I still feel terrible because, like, what if I did, right? We're all trauma survivors are that way sometimes, and so I might go, okay, what's happening for me? And my body's noticing it. Or if you had a trauma happen in a location, I can tell you sometimes, like, what corner I'm sitting at in certain places, like, because my body recognizes it before my brain does, which is wild. The first time that happened, I was driving through the country and had had a very difficult experience with a relationship when I was in high school, and they were not a nice human. And think abusive when I say not nice humans, like, and I pull up this corner and I'm like, why is my body feeling the heebie jeebies? And I felt uncomfortable and I just wanted to get away. And I was like, I want to run the red light, but that's a bad idea. And so I was trying to figure it out. And then my brain was like, I was like, where am I? And I looked around and I was like, I'm at the intersection right by the house where this guy lived. And my body knew it before my brain did. And it was like, okay. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to not do this intersection for a little while. That'd be kind of cool. Um, but I was able to go, something's up here, and,
Right.
and understand, right? Which is a safety mechanism. My body was like, bad things have happened here. We don't want to be here. Let's move along, friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We talk a lot about the body keeps the score on here, because exactly what you just said. A lot of people aren't aware of what's happening, or exactly what you just described, or going into an establishment and wondering why they get this anxious feeling, and they just want to run away, and they don't understand. And so we talk a lot about the body keeps the score on here, because people need to understand that trauma sits in the cellular level, which is obviously the body portion of it. And so what the mind doesn't, what the mind remembers, but the body, what the mind doesn't remember, the body does. Right. And so, yeah. I've had a few episodes of that, and I'm just like, okay, like, I don't know what's going on, but,
right.
Okay, we're getting out of here as quick as we can.
Right. And it's like, when you're able to sit with it, you can actually move through it in some ways. So there is a particular park that has a waterfall in it. And I had a very bad experience with same guy of intersection boy. We'll just call him that. And so I had not gone to that park for years, and I got really annoyed with that. And I'm like, look, first of all, I like a good waterfall. I'm just going to have to go there. So I am taking back this space, right? Because we don't have to let trauma win, first of all, right? As part of being embodied, and part of healing is like, you don't get to own me anymore. I therefore evict you out of me, essentially, in a way, right? Doesn't mean scars won't remain, but we can heal. And so I went to that park, and my body was like, don't like, right? My heart was racing. I was sweating in the winter. And it was just like, but I am going to go do this. I'm going to put my feet here, because I'm going to show my body we're safe now. And this is a safe place now. And so I thanked my body. And this is another thing. I do talk to my body. We have little meetings. And, no, I do not think my body is a whole separate part of me at all. But I have found that there is power in words. And so when I refer to my body as a her, you can refer to your body however you like. But please do it gently and kindly and nicely. So I just said, hey, I know you're scared because bad things happened here. And I get it. We are much older now. We are safe. This person's not here. They can't hurt us. And we are going to go, and we're going to breathe in the goodness of God's creation. And we are going to take back ground, quite literally. And so I did. I got out of my vehicle, and I put my feet on the ground, and I was shaking like a leaf. And I breathed in the fall air, and I looked at the waterfall, and I let my body feel safety in that place. And it took a minute, not gonna lie, it was not like a fast process.
Right.
But I noticed my feet on the ground. I noticed the sound of the waterfall. I noticed the cool fall air. I noticed how it felt to breathe it in. I noticed how it felt to feel grounded into the earth, right? So I just made sure I was standing really firmly, and just really noticed where my feet were. And I allowed my body to start to settle and have the experience of safety in a place that was not safe at one point. And that was really amazing. And now I can go to that park, I can drive by that park, and I don't feel anything at all, like anything negative. I'm like, oh, pretty, right? And like that, I feel good things. But I don't, it's not that I don't remember the traumatic experience and go, yeah, that sucked. That was no fun. But also, it doesn't keep me from doing something I want to do now. And that's important. Right now, we don't want to take back ground in a place where it's like an unsafe place. It's like, I'm not going to go up to an abusive individual and be like, I'm taking back ground from you. That's, don't do dumb things, right? Like, be safe. Again, safety above trauma survivor. But I can go to places that maybe I had a bad experience, and I can redeem them. I can take them back. I can allow my body to have that experience of safety in a place that didn't feel safe, and really just say, hey, I'm so grateful that you're reacting right now, because you want me to be safe. Like, our bodies are so kind and merciful that they want to keep us safe. And sometimes it's all we got when we were a kid. And our brain is like, we don't know what to do with this. Our body's like, we got you.
Oh, they do. They do. Like I said, that we talk about that so much here, and I've recommended the book, and I'm just like, just read the first half of it. I mean, the clinical side, yeah, but just read the
Mhm.
first half, because that book, that was a book that saved my life, and and then really getting into it. But it was interesting about that. The body keeps the score. I think I read it, and I think like 3 years later, it finally clicked what the book really meant. I was like, who does that? Me. I was like,
Everyone,
you,
honestly.
yeah, do that. Yeah. Cause I was like, 3 years later, that's what that book means. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And so, yeah, it was just like, wow. But I like how you said, like, because I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, for me personally, is going to places, and I'll sit with the uncomfortableness, but I hate it. And then I was like, yeah, I don't want to go back there.
Mhm.
But I'm slowly trying to work on going to places and sitting with the uncomfortableness, and trying to talk to my body, like, what are you trying to tell me? Like,
Mhm.
what is it about this? And it was the same thing. I think it was 2 years ago. All of a sudden I developed this phobia of water.
Mm.
Now, I loved water ever since I was little. I absolutely love water. I would go swimming um, all the time. Like, I love it. And 2 summers ago, all of a sudden, I developed like this huge phobia, and I was like, I remember going and getting our pool passes at a local pool, and I was like, why all of a sudden is my fight or flight kicking in? And I had no
Mhm.
idea. And I was like, okay, like, why all of a sudden now? I've been swimming now for 43 years, or if not longer. Why now? Uh,
Mhm.
and it dawned on me. It was related to my abuse and some of the things that happened in pools relating to my.
Mm.
And so it happened to be the same around the same age that my
Mhm.
youngest daughter is. And
Very
so
common.
yep, yep. And it didn't dawn on me until I was like, why is this happening? And then I was able to put both of those pieces together to realize that my body was resisting me going in there. Obviously, because of the safety. So
Mhm.
I was able to sit with it, because I was like, I can't allow my kids to not enjoy water in the summer and things. And so I was able to sit with it, and it was very, very uncomfortable. Like, there were times I was just like, okay, it would be like an hour and a half or even an hour. And I was like, all right, guys, we have to leave. And they would be like, oh, um, oh, can we stay a little longer? And I said, let's just leave for a little bit. Let's go get something to eat and come back.
Mhm.
And so I was able to kind of work my way up to stay longer, to stay longer, to stay longer. But that's actually the first time I've ever talked about this here. I don't even think my husband doesn't even know that either. But um, it's things like that who would have known 40 something years later, like I said, 42, 43 years later, that holy mackerel, something like that would have showed up. So,
Yep.
that I was proud, but there are still moments that I'm just like, why are these things coming up? And I try to sit with the uncomfortableness, and I'm like, man, I'm not one to sit, but that's what I'm learning. I'm learning to sit and embody exactly the feeling, um, so I can overcome more of the challenges that I'm facing.
Right.
And
And
thankfully,
and as trauma survivors, we're super great at like being busy so we don't feel, right? So, that learning to like slow down and allow yourself to feel is absolutely huge. So I love this question about how do we
yes,
walk through these with a kid? First of all, I'm going to say you walk through your own first, because we cannot give what we do not have. We cannot take someone, even our sweet little ones, where we will not go ourselves. And so that is, I train every therapist that way. That works for me is we have to be fearless in our own work, right? So that how am I going to bring somebody into their bodies and give them safe space if I'm scared of my own, realistically? So it starts with you. And then for a kiddo, once you're more comfortable with your own body, it is again short and sweet, depending on the age of the kid, right? So if we're talking like your 25-year-old, you can use more words. If you're talking about your 5-year-old, it's a little different. So age appropriate here. Um, a lot of parents try to explain these abstract concepts to their teeny little children, and I'm like, please stop. They do not have that kind of thinking. Their prefrontal cortex is not wired up. They like
nope,
just like
nope.
let's help them get in their bodies and stop being weird. But kids are really good at it, actually. Uh, so if they're feeling a big emotion, you can say, "Oh my gosh, what's happening for you?" And they're like, "I don't know," because they don't know. And so we have to help them with the words. And so we can have a feeling chart. We can have all kinds of different things that we use with them. Okay, so we've got so not quite so little and little. Because the 9-year-old would not appreciate being called little, even though to all of us, we know that we would feel that way. They will not. And I will respect the 9-year-old's feeling of that. But to say, like, hey, it looks like something big's happening, and I know words can be hard. I have this picture. Do any of these look like it? And they might be like sad, shame, whatever. Like they're gonna give you a smile, like one of the emojis, right? Yeah. Where do you feel it in your body? And and like use big parts for kiddos, like my head, my chest, my tummy, my back, whatever. And so you can help them with that, and they might, and as they get more practice at it, they'll be like, it's in my chest, and you're like, okay, all right, just notice it. It's okay to feel it. Right. So let's say it's sad because maybe they didn't get their way, or big brother stepped on their toe, or there's a lot of reasons to be sad. Sometimes they're just sad because it's a sad day. Which also, here's the thing: if we're allowed to have sad days or mad days, I mean, like, look, don't be mean to people if you have a mad day. That's not an excuse. But like, we all have days where we're a little off, or it's a sad day, or a mad day, or a frustrated day. And so our kids are human beings. I think we forget that sometimes, that they're actually human. And so, like, maybe they're just like not a why to their sad. They're just sad. It's a sad day. I don't know. Things are cloudy. Yeah, it's terrible. Right. And there was no chocolate. And you can say, that's hard. So you can validate it. You don't have to agree with it. You can validate it and go, yeah, that sounds big. And you feel it in your chest. Can we just notice it together? Yeah. Okay. We're just noticing it. If you had to give it a color, what color might you give it? And look, if they don't say blue and you think sad should be blue, that's okay. It's their body. They get to have it, right?
They do.
And so you go, okay, it's like hot pink. All right, just notice the hot pink. Can we breathe and see if it gets bigger or smaller, right? You just kind of walk them through playing around with it, see what happens to it, and just breathing into that space with them. And then sometimes it's like, we don't have to fix it. And I think this is like a human condition. And this is one of the things I think that the more comfortable we become with feeling with our own bodies, all of that, and the more comfortable we are with people being wherever they are. And we don't have to fix it for them. Because a lot of times when we want someone to feel better, it's so we feel better because we're uncomfortable with their uncomfortable. And it kind of shortchanges them actually working through the uncomfortable. So we don't want to do that. And so we just kind of sit with it, and go, okay, you know what? Sometimes it's sad. It's a sad day, and that's okay. Or, yeah, I can see why you'd be sad that your brother took your toy or stepped on your toe or whatever. That's a hard thing. And of course, that's going to make somebody sad. Totally get that, and you just sit with it with them, and then you help them move through it. Maybe we can do some wiggling. Let's try jumping up and down if you want to help them. Like, and again, it's a slower process. Relationships are not efficient. I'll tell you that right now. They're messy, they're inefficient, and they are not linear. So sometimes we're going to do things longer than we want. Like, we're like, come on, get through sad, but we got to let it be with them for a minute. You know what I'm saying? And let it happen. And then, okay, let's kind of move on. Hey, so glad you told me you were feeling sad. Thanks for that. And then move on, and kids are really fast. They're going to get it a lot faster. I see the comment that their kiddo is not, I don't want to feel my emotions. Yes. Understand. Oh, so understandable. Because emotions are scary, right? They're big and they feel big. And if they're a big feeler, look, there are some people who are ponds and some people who are oceans. I am ocean. It's going to be big. They're going to be big waves. It's okay. And it took a long time for me to have any peace with that at all, because, you're afraid you're going to be, here's the thing. Every trauma survivor ever has said, probably, I don't want to be a burden.
Yep.
I don't want to be too much, right? When in reality, we're probably none of those things, but abusive individuals have said them to us or implied them heavily, or both, and we came to believe them. So you can say, I can imagine it would be hard to feel emotions. I totally get that. Because especially if there was an abusive individual, you didn't get to have your emotions. Your abusive individual is going to be like, if you're going to cry, I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Yep.
Right? How many of us Gen Xers heard that? I know I did. And it wasn't like they were trying to be terrible or anything. It's just the way that it was also bypasses your emotions. Sometimes they were being terrible. But we can say, hey, it's safe now to feel your emotions. I know they feel big. how can we give them space? So there are these things, I think they're called Hobart spheres, but they're the little things that are like made out of bendy plasticky things. And they're like the big circle spheres that get bigger and smaller as you pull them. So you could do something like that and go, hey, can we breathe into that big emotion? And we'll make this big with it, you know? Or like a big squishy thing that they can use because kids need to be tactile. Kids process through play, especially little ones. And so you can be like, okay, so let's feel the big emotion together. Okay, where do you notice it? Okay, okay, we can smush it now. Okay, now let's get it a little bit bigger. What do you notice? What do you notice? I don't like it, Gary. Okay, I got you. I'm here with you. I'm in it. Okay, let's squish it. Okay, I'm gonna bring it a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. Can you hold on to it? I don't like this big emotion. It's gonna make me cry. That's okay. Tears are liquid prayers. They are beautiful. Okay, we can squish it, right? And we're getting to hold it. It's called pendulation, where you kind of go in and out until you can go in more and in more and in more and build that window of tolerance and feel it a little bit more. And so with kids, we kind of have to do it in a play way, in a game way, and know that like, hey, like we're not going to do this perfectly, and it is not going to be super easy with it, because kids are going to be like, I don't want to do. I mean, like, look, man, one day they like chicken nuggets, and the next day they do not. This is how children work. And so if it is a day that they're like, I will go do this emotional thing with you, you're like, okay, we're going to do it. And if it's a day where it's like, I no longer like chicken nuggets, even though I've only eaten those for 6 months straight, today is not a chicken nugget day. We will just honor that it is not a chicken nugget day. We will breathe through it because we probably need to if we're a parent. And we're going to go, all right, you know what? I understand emotions feel big and scary. Hey, you want to draw it? You want to try something else, right? Like, I don't want to feel it at all. Totally understand. Totally understand. Can we wiggle it out? Can we wiggle together? Can we do a dance party? Right. So we can teach them all kinds of different ways to help them out. And yes, it is very hard to love ourselves because we know everything terrible about ourselves, don't we? Like we hear all of these things in our own head. And a lot of times, if we are coming out of abuse in particular, the concept that I use and talk about, and I have this in my book, is vows and curses. So these curses are spoken over us and,
Mhm.
horrible things said about us, either explicitly or implicitly. And the vow we made was, I believe that it must be true. And
Right.
so if I've been told or treated as if I am unlovable for however long, then I'm going to believe that about me. And I'm going to walk in life as if it is true. And when I can go, okay, wait, I am worthy of love. I'm
Right.
created in the image and likeness of God. I am worthy of love. Then I can start, right? And it's not going to feel true. And that is a hard space. And again, you could even walk in it really well one day and not the next, or walk in it really well in 5 minutes and the next 7 minutes it's a struggle, right? Like sometimes
Mhm.
it feels like all out war inside,
Yep.
and that is the way it goes. But the more that we can do that, the more that we can begin to rest and to trust and all of that. Um, there are some great books out there for emotion regulation for kids. I still will say, like, your kid. So there's all kinds of resources like Dr. Becky Robin Goebel. There are just like these kid therapists out there who have really great things. But also, the more you do it, the more you will just naturally do it with your kids, honestly. And the more you practice and learn, the more ideas you get. So one of my favorite adult books is Hillary McBride's think it's the practices. Hold on, let me look at it here. I had it pulled up on my Kindle so I could tell you for sure the name of it. Practices for Embodied Living. And she wrote the book, The Wisdom of the Body. She talks a lot about embodiment in that book. It's one of my favorite recent books on that. But the practices are just some things that you can do. You can also Google, embodied practices, really anything that you're doing that engages your body is going to be really helpful. So it can be breathing, dancing, right? So if you are not comfortable with body movement, and a lot of trauma survivors make themselves smaller, they kind of fold themselves up. I notice a lot of slouching and squishing and folding in. Dancing can be a great way to open that up. And like, we're not talking ballroom dancing unless that is what you would like to do. And by all means, please do. But like, dude, Taylor Swift, shake it off up in your house, man. Throw on some loud music that you love,
Mhm.
within the appropriate confines of your neighbors and your ears. We're not trying to go deaf here.
Nope.
And wiggle it out. Just it can be, you can be like, this is interpretive dance a la Seinfeld from like the 90s. Totally fine.
Yep.
Whatever it is that you need to do, but get do the wiggles. And the more that you do that and get comfortable with your body moving, the more you're going to engage your kids in it. Sometimes it's even easier for parents if they do it with the kids to start. It's like, hey, there's a Bluey episode. I have found, and it's because my own therapist did it to me, like made me go watch an episode of Bluey once, and I was like, God. But you know, uh, Bluey has a dancing episode where like they have to dance every time like there's music or something. I mean, you
Yep.
could watch that with your kiddos, and every time Bluey and the family dance, you can dance too. And so those are little things that are going to start getting you into your body, get your body moving, and then you can ask your kiddo, like, hey, what was it like for you to like dance with mom, or dad, or mommy and dad, or caregivers, or like the neighbor, whatever, you know, and really enjoy that with them. They're like, oh, it's fun. It made me laugh. I felt happy feelings. Fantastic. Or, oh, I don't know. It was really weird today. I felt sad. Oh, we wiggled out some sad. That's amazing.
Oh, I like
So
that. I always,
million.
yeah, I like that. I always say dance party, but I'm always in here shaking it. You should like just shaking my whole body out, putting Christian
Mhm.
music on, and I just go back and forth in my cabin and dancing. And my daughters and I will do the same thing. So even if like my one daughter learned the wiggle dance. It's on YouTube, but the wiggle dance, and it's a weird thing too. But you like wiggle your whole body and whatever else, and so she does that. But yeah, I mean, if I know one of the things that we do for like the prefrontal cortex too is trauma informed movement, and I can't stand that.
Mhm.
Like I've for 2 years now, and I'm like, I can't stand it. Or doing like somatic exercises, and I was like, you know what? But I love dance party. So if you're like me,
Mhm.
just go do dance party. You and your kids put on some good music, like Tabitha said, put on good music and just dance, dance, dance. Because not only are you dancing away all of your stuff and you're helping your body connect and whatever
Mhm.
else, but you may even start shaping your body too because you're gonna feel it.
Yeah, I mean, just and also like it gets all the good chemicals going, right?
Yes.
When we're moving, and it's very helpful, especially if we get stuck in a freeze state. We're like,
Okay.
oh goodness gracious, I'm stuck. And that is another thing. Like this is something we have in all of our offices. When you are in like a fight stage, right? So you are in that fight space, fight or flight. You'll notice sometimes your body gets hot. And so if I have a client who we're working through something and they suddenly get super hot, I will invite them to notice it, and we have ice packs in our freezer. And
Ooh.
so, like, the little ones for boo-boos, that you can get off of Amazon that are also super cute because, like, look, if I'm gonna ice something, I'm gonna look cute doing it. It's the way it goes.
Yep.
And so we might invite them to, like, maybe put that on their face or on their chest or, a place that feels good to them, and so that we can start bringing their body chemistry down a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Part of what is called the tip skill, and we're tipping our body chemistry in that space. You do it a lot of different ways. Typically, the official instructions tell you to stick your face in a bowl of cold water from like here to here, which I am not doing because my mascara will not support that sort of thing. However, an ice pack, a bag of frozen vegetables, I recommend peas, cherries, corn, not broccoli. Broccoli is pokey. Anything like that, though, for like 30 seconds, and
Okay.
it will help your body start to calm down when it's, really elevated. If you notice, like, it suddenly got cold and no one else is cold, and it's not because I'm having my own personal summer or winter, menopause, it's because I'm processing something or something triggered me or whatever. We have these things called warmies that you can get on
Ooh.
Amazon that you can microwave for like 60 seconds, and they're filled with like lavender beads or something. And we have our clients microwave those and put those like somewhere on their body that feels good. So their chest or maybe the back of their neck or what have you. So we have unicorns and wolves because our clients are both strong and unique and wonderful. So,
Yep.
they get to pick whatever they feel like that day. But they are amazing tools to have for clients. And also you can wrap up in a blanket. Um, it's not uncommon for clients to get really cold while processing something because they're in a bit of a freeze.
Ooh.
And so covering up with a blanket can help them work through that. And so like our bodies are telling us so much in these places. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going, holy smokes. Like you can ask my husband, he's on, but I'm not all the time, but all of a sudden I'll be sitting there and I will get hot all of a sudden. And
Mhm.
my face still feels cold, but my internal temperature is like 500 degrees. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Or I never even knew like that a cold flash could be a trigger, because there's times I freeze and everybody else is hot as can be. And I'm like, I'm in taking the hottest shower. And then I got sweatpants on and a sweatshirt, and I got my flannel socks on covered in a blanket. And they're like, Mom, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I have no idea. All I know is that I'm freezing and the rest of you are not. And so, yeah, so now I know what it, because I used to say, oh, that's that methotrexate that I had to take years and years ago. I was like, maybe that's what it is, because it made me cold. So yeah, you just really got me thinking, because I'm like, yeah, now I know probably what, I mean, I don't know what the cause is, but now you made me aware of hot and cold flashes. So now when it happens, I can say, hey, what's going on?
Yeah. It
Thank
is
you.
not uncommon for a client to be in therapy and be
Yeah.
like, gosh, did it get hot in here? And they're not menopausal, right? So, I mean, like, obviously, always check for physical things, right? Like, I am
Yep.
not a physician. I don't claim to be one. I did not stay
Right.
at a Holiday Inn Express. But, like, like, we want to make sure there's not a physical cause. But,
Yes.
like, absent that, when it's like, I was talking about this really hard thing, this traumatic experience that all of a sudden I got hot, I have questions. And
Yep.
so, like, okay, like, let's notice that. Let's just notice that together. What is hot, right? Because sometimes we're like, "Oh, I'm just hot," and you're like, "I mean, like,
Yes.
all of you?" And sometimes the client will say, "Well, like, my chest is really hot, or my back is really hot, or a leg." I mean, like, it can be all I've heard all kinds of things.
Oh,
And so you go, "Okay, that's what, like, let's just be curious," you know? And it's not uncommon that I'll say, "Did anything," like, first of all, "How old do you feel?" One of my favorite questions.
yep.
And it's not uncommon for a client to go, "Young." "How young?" Like, 10. "Okay.
Hmm.
Your leg is really hot and you feel 10. Can we just sit with that for a second?" And usually sometimes they're like, "I would like to go over the back of your couch and out the wall now." But I
Right.
am encouraging them to just stay with it. Um,
Yep.
and so they'll stay with it, and I'll say, what was happening in your life at 10?" "Oh my gosh, I was a soccer player and I got in this like collision with another kid and I broke my leg and it ended my soccer career." "Oh, really? What leg was that?" "My left." "Oh, the one that's hot." "Wow. Okay. So let's just kind of sit with that." And then how did your family respond? "Well, my dad was really disappointed in me that I wasn't going to be the next Messi." And in fact, he just said I was messy, but not that kind. And I really felt uncared for and hated,
Oh,
you know. And so then we get into the okay, what else are you noticing? Let's just go with that. And so now we're into the place where we can kind of heal that deep trauma. The body was saying, like, hey, we hit something here. Can we talk about it? And by
mm,
sitting with it, we are able to get there.
I like that. Yeah, because yeah, my face, yeah, that my ears will even get like real red, and I was like,
Mhm.
I don't even know what's going on, but yeah, okay, I'm writing all this information down because I'm like, this is all good stuff. Because and I'm not menopausal either, so I'm like, I know these hot flashes. I'm like, and they've been, but it does. I mean, I just feel it, and I was like, I'll even say to my husband, "Feel my face," and he's like, "Your face is cold, Gene." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. Like my internal temperature is 500 degrees," and yeah, so thank you for that, because I always thought, man, maybe I'm one of those oddballs and stuff, because I'm like, well, I knew triggering, but I never realized the hot and cold flashes. So thank you for that. That's new information for me.
Yeah, and it's really
Yeah.
helpful for
Mm.
clients. And it's like, okay, when I get really cold at home, what was happening right when that happened? Well, my husband, I had said, "Hey, really want to watch a movie with you on the couch. Could we watch Jumanji or whatever it is people watch?" I'm like the worst movie person ever. And they were like, "No, I really need to go and, like wire something in the garage." And you feel rejected and abandoned, and that
Yep.
hits something from developmental
Mm.
years or another situation where you felt abandoned and unloved, and you're like, "Oh," and your body goes cold because you're like, "Well, I'm just gonna shut down anyway because I don't need people," you know?
Mm.
And so when you sit with that and go, "What happened? Oh, like, I know he did need to, like, rewire the light in the garage because we can't see anything," you know? We
Right.
really do need
Right.
to see stuff. And otherwise, he loves me and he's great, but, like, I really felt like in that moment, it just hit this deep part of me, and now I'm cold. And so, like, we can be curious about that and go, "Wow, where is this coming from?" Like, Oh, yeah, I felt really abandoned and really uncared for in that moment. Through no fault of the other person sometimes, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, he didn't know that he hit a trigger, but your body was like, "Ugh, yeah, we'll just go over here."
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I'm definitely gonna pay attention now. Now that I'm aware of it, hopefully I'll catch it and say, "Oh, what's going on in the moment?" Because that was one. I used to have really bad triggers, and so being aware of working, going on my third year, working through my own stuff of what was triggering me. That was the worst thing until I was able to identify. But yeah, so this has really helped me. Thank you. I
Yeah.
like that.
And there's
Um,
lots of things like, when I see clients who have autoimmune disorders and things like that, and they've been in, decades long abuse, or they've been in, they had developmental
yes.
trauma and abuse and that sort of thing, the body really does keep the score. And so it's not uncommon if I'm working with an abuse survivor, when they are free of the toxic relationship and the destruction, their bodies start to stabilize. Now, it doesn't fix everything. I wish it did. That'd be amazing.
Mhm.
But it can make things a lot better. So if you're like, man, like, yeah, my body really struggled when I was with this person, for an extended period of time, or even a boss. Like, there can be, I don't know if you've had some rough bosses, but goodness gracious, some can be special. And and as trauma
Yep.
survivors, of course, we think everything is our fault because that's how our brain works sometimes. And we have to remind ourselves that all the problems on earth are actually not ours. And sometimes, like, if we're around a toxic individual, like, our bodies are going to tell us,
Mhm.
and they're gonna be like, "Oh, like, my joints are really stiff," or, "I notice, like, my nose stuffs up when I go into work," and it's not because the workplace, has, like, allergens or something. It's like, "Oh, man, like, something's going on," and so we can be curious and go, "When does it happen?" "Oh, you know what? When, Mr. Bill comes down the hallway and comes into my office, like, my joints suddenly hurt," because I know I'm about to get in trouble, so, like, everything's tensing up, and our
Yep.
body's going, "Yeah, this is not gonna be fun. Let's prepare for battle," and all that. And so we can do some things because we can't always quit our jobs, let's be real.
Right.
But we can
Right.
go, hey, like, yes, this is uncomfortable. I'm going to give my body space. I'm going to go give it care. So he's going to come in here and he's going to tell me that the report that was due at 3 is now due at 2. I'm going to have a mini panic attack. I also know he always does that. So I'm just going to start doing it at 2. Also, problem solving. And now I'm going to go walk around, like, my floor or the parking lot or wherever it is, however you work. And I'm going to discharge some of this energy. It's kind of called completing the circuit, right? So, like, when we get really activated, sometimes we need to discharge that energy. And activation even is in a freeze state, right? So even though you may be in a freeze state, things have slowed way down on the outside. If we were to stick, leads to your head and do a functional MRI, there's stuff happening inside. And so you moving can help you also move through that as well.
Okay. So lots of movement.
And
I'm
look,
writing tickets.
I'm not telling people to do CrossFit. If you want to do CrossFit, that's your thing, go for it. If you desire to flip tires, by all means, but like a good brisk walk or just moving in
Move.
general, or if you have mobility struggles, like we're not talking running, right?
Right.
Move in the way that your body will allow you. And even if you do, like, there's lots of chair exercises, chair dances,
Mhm.
it's like, and this is another thing that a lot of like trauma survivors have a problem with is their proprioceptive system. So that is, where is my body in relationship to all the stuff around me? So if you're somebody who's like, I walk into walls that have never moved, they just live there, and I keep hitting the same one, though it's my house and I legitimately know where it is. Your proprioceptive system may be a little wonky from the trauma that you endured. If I get triggered, and sometimes it happens where I'm like triggered out of my ever loving mind for a second, I will walk into an object that I have known is there for quite some time, like a wall, a door. And so I'm like, yep, I am triggered and I don't know where I am. And so, like, if
Okay.
you're like, balance is not my strong suit, do some chair exercises. Again, we're going to be kind to our bodies and meet them where they are. Sometimes we can get stronger and do things differently. But if you have a disability or a difference in ability, that doesn't mean that you can't take care of yourself. You just do what you can do.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. So Piggy has another question. So she wants to know when your new book comes out.
So it comes out April 1st of 2025. And the name of the book is Body and Soul Healed and Whole. And it is an invitational guide to healthy sexuality after trauma, abuse, and coercive control. So a lot of women, this is for Christian women in particular, have their sexuality just utterly shattered through either sexual assault, sexual abuse in marriage, and don't know how to put it back together again. Or if it happened as a child, they don't even know how to have one to begin with. And so this is a very non-preachy, extremely practical, and also we talk about all the hard things book that really walks women through healing. I do think men can get a lot out of it as well, but it is primarily for Christian women. And again, I am not take 2 verses and call me in the morning. I don't know if we figured that out by now, but I am not. So it is a lot of practical help and not preachy.
Good. What was the name of it again?
Body and Soul Healed and Whole. And it is available for pre-order on Amazon or wherever you buy books.
Thank you. You got it. Perfect. Yeah, I'm excited for that too. I'm excited for the book and this wonderful conversation. This is really good. I've learned so much. I'm like, man, I got, you should see, I got my notes. I got 3 pages of notes. I'm like, this is good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. That's why I love doing these. It's not even for, I mean, it is for me, but so many of us coming from being trauma survivors and then literally going and taking, our pain, turning it into a purpose, and then, harnessing all of that to help other trauma survivors and stuff. So, I love that. So, your practice. So do you guys work telehealth? Do you work and see people from other states? How does your practice work if somebody does want to work with you?
Absolutely. So we are, most of our therapists are licensed in North Carolina or North Carolina and Texas. I am licensed in North Carolina, Texas, South Dakota, and a registered telehealth professional in South Carolina and Florida. So we have kind of folks all over the place. If you are not residing in one of those locations where we, if we don't live where you live and are not licensed where you live, then we also do intensives. So you come into us, and typically for your first intensive, it is 3 days. It is awesome. It's intense, not gonna lie. It's hard work. But it is really amazing, the work that we get done. So if you're like, I just need to get some stuff done. Like, I am tired of doing 45 or 50-minute sessions and then having to close things up and try to remember what happened next week. And something happened and then my hair's on fire and, we feel like we're not getting momentum. An intensive is the way to do it. Our intensives are very experiential. We are all trained in either eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or EMDR, which is a fantastic evidence-based trauma treatment, or brain spotting, which is also an evidence-based trauma treatment. We do a lot of somatic work, obviously, because we're treating the whole human being with a body. We also do a little bit of internal family systems, which some people know as parts work. And we do art therapy, and both of our offices have amazing equine therapy partners. So we also include equine therapy in it. So we get to go play with horses, and that's a lot of fun. And it's very healing for clients. We have found that it is such a great experience for our clients. And then in our Texas office, we also have an add-on with a trauma touch massage therapist. So think somatic experiencing through massage. And she is trained and certified in that, and she's excellent as well. So we have a lot of different options that you can't just do in a regular session. So that is an option. We also have online groups. We have one right now for women, for faith-based women, for overcoming trauma and healing from trauma. And I'm not sure when our next one starts. I think it ends in November, and we may start the next one at the beginning of the year. I need to ask the clinician that runs it, but it is fantastic. So you can be anywhere on earth as long as you have an internet connection, and can stay awake through class, obviously. We also have some in-person women's retreats often. We're working toward having a men's trauma group. And we also, are looking toward hopefully having a men's sex addiction and a women's sex addiction group.
That's good. I'm making notes of all this. Good. So where can they find information about any of your groups, the online groups, women's retreat, anything that you have to offer? Where can they find you?
And go to our website, which is The Journey and the Process, and spell out and I'm not using a symbol. So journeyandtheprocess.com is how to find us. And I think, if you put it in the description, it'll be down there as well. And that is the best way to get a hold of us. And there's a contact form there, or you can also email us at info@thejourneyandtheprocess.com.
And I will definitely add that. If it's not already in there, I will definitely add that so you know how to get a hold of Tabitha and her amazing team. If you want to work with them, if you want to do one of their retreats, anything that, their online groups and things like that. So anything like that. So yeah. It would be cool to see like obviously for men too, because men need it, but like a men's, weekend retreat, or even like an extensive women's retreat and things like that too. So it would be wonderful. I do have a question because I was writing down notes. So, not shame on me, but kind of shame on me. When you're talking about the 3-day extensive, is that that's all in person, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And where does that take place?
It depends on which person you're seeing. It'll either be in our North Carolina office or our Texas office.
Okay, that's what I missed. Okay, so 3-day extensive. Yeah. Okay. All right, perfect.
And you can schedule an intensive anytime. So it doesn't have to already be there. You just say, hey, I would love to do an intensive. And we pair you up with one of our amazing therapists. And truthfully, all of the therapists are trained by me. Life is too short for crappy therapy. That's all I'm going to say, right? Like, our therapists are literally the best. And I understand that I'm wholly biased because they are my people and I love them, but they are amazing. And our clients say they're amazing. So it's not just my opinion. Like, we have the best therapists ever. And we really, again, life is too short for crappy therapy. And we really want to help people meet their goals. And if we talk with you and we're not the right fit, we're going to tell you, because we also don't want to waste your time. We like you. And so we're going to, hopefully help you find somebody that's exactly perfect for you. Or if we're perfect for you, then we are happy to work with you. So we want people to have really good care.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where the connection comes in, and, you build that safety and connection. There's another question. Are there intensives coming up?
Yeah. So you can schedule an intensive at any time. So if you reach out to us either through the website or info@thejourneyandtheprocess.com, we can, find out what it is that you need to kind of work on, what you're hoping for. And then we can connect you up with one of our, the best therapist fit for you and get you, into an intensive pretty quickly.
Good. What a wonderful evening. I gained a lot of insights. I'm hoping that everybody else gained a lot of insight, a lot of knowledge into, being present back in your body and ways to be present in your body and be able to feel in your body. So now that I know, there's things that I didn't know, but I knew about dance party, but it's one of those things, I'm just stubborn. I'm just like, I'll do it. It doesn't really make any sense. And it doesn't work. And now you're telling me, okay, Gina, like, hello, you need to do something. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, I should have been doing this a long time ago. And I know it does work. And how I know it works is because I kind of, not that I want to close with this, but movement is huge. And for me, it was, I worked out like 5 or 6 days a week, and my mental health was like so good. And so I literally bought a home gym. And so I'm clearing out my office space to put it in here because I have no room in the house. And I was like, yeah, put it in here. But I've literally like watched my mental health from not being able to work out kind of pivot, go right down the drain. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, I really need to do something. And I know, like, walking, dance party, all of that. But I'm like, who really wants to walk? Who really wants to have dance party? But then I'm like, it really does work. So, like, don't take it from me. Like, don't listen to me. Because, like, I will tell you, do it. And then I'm not, no. There are things that I do share with my clients. And I'm like, yeah, I do that. And then there's other things like, you should do it. But then I'm like, why am I telling you to do it? And I don't even do it. But thank you for reiterating that to me, that these are the things that as a trauma survivor, I should be doing, and things like that. Because it does reiterate that those things do help me, kind of start excreting a lot of that trapped trauma that stays within our body. So I made a big circle around that.
And I also I'm going to challenge your language a little bit, if that's okay. Do you mind if I do that?
No, I knew you were. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say this. This is what I say to a lot of clients. We don't shit on ourselves. Um,
Yeah, I know.
so it's an invitational practice, right? And I think that it matters, right? Because if I'm like, oh my God, I have to do this thing, I should, right? It's gonna feel like a ball and chain, and my treadmill is gonna like essentially become a clothes rack.
It'll be sitting there forever.
You know, but like if I go, I am invited to care for this body that God has given me, that's a different thing. And it's also gonna push against our I'm not worthy of care, which so many
Yeah.
trauma survivors have. And so then you get to wrestle with that a little bit of, am I worthy of care? Well, I mean, like intellectually, I know that I'm worthy of care, um, you know, and all of those things. But like, if I'm invited to love myself well, then I'm going to feel a little bit differently about movement. And it can start small, right? It can start with chair movement. It can start with a walk. I love the memes that are like, I'm so angry. My therapist was right. A walk is helpful. And you're like, yes, indeed.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
but again, it's like, progress, not perfection. We do little
Yes.
bits at a time. So even if you get on your home gym for 5 minutes, it was 5 minutes, right? Even if you
Yes.
walk to the mailbox and back, you walked to the mailbox and back.
Yep.
And all of those things were body movement. If you need to
Mhm.
make it fun, make it fun. Like I'm a big fan of bubbles. I think they're the best thing. I literally carry them everywhere. I drive around in a camper van. Her name is Vanquility, because of course it is. And so I always have bubbles in the van? Yes. I also do silly little things. Like I was at a friend's therapy office recently, and I brought an entire bag of plastic resin turtles, and they were all over the place. So I don't know if he's actually told everybody who it was at this point. So I might have just outed myself, and I don't. I should text him before he sees this. Um, but I did. I also
Yep.
learned that a group of turtles is a flotilla, and some of the therapists that I'm friends with got flotillas in their office, just gonna say. So you can do little things like that,
Yeah. Yes.
where it's just silly, but there's movement, right? Because I'm like going and putting turtles in places.
Yes. Yes.
Now please, if you're gonna turtle, do it responsibly. Don't do it in a place you'll get in trouble. I
Right.
also might have bought one of my clinicians an entire bag of chickens, little resin chickens to do with as she pleased. So I'm certain they're all over our office in Lake Forest now. So these are things that you can do. So have fun with
Yes. Yes.
movement, and
Yes.
and make it joyous, and it doesn't have to be, this thing, do something fun.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that because sometimes I do. Yeah, that's just like, I'm like, and I do like, so I do appreciate you saying that to me and to, be more kind and more gentle with myself and things like that too. And it is like, I'm always saying small steps is what equals success. I don't want to do a giant
Mhm.
leap. I just want to do small steps. And so, like even when we're out walking, I don't know how far the stop sign is from my house. The stop, maybe a quarter of a mile or so. And so I walk every morning. I walk my daughter to the bus stop. And so it's nice. So I walk her down there and then I walk back and then I walk in the afternoon and then I walk back. But there's sometimes I get to the stop sign. I'm like, maybe I should just walk to the other stop sign, which is probably another quarter
Right.
mile or so. And I'm like, yeah, no, I got to go home. I got a 9 o'clock appointment. And but I'm getting out there and I'm moving and it's slow movement, or I'll just
Mhm.
say, I'm bored. Come on, kids, let's just go, go for a walk. And so I'll say, oh, where do
Mhm.
you want to walk to? Oh, we'll walk to the stop sign. And then we'll walk like, and then we get there and I'm like, you know what? I feel like walking more. And before you
Right.
know it, we just walk 3 miles. And so
Right.
I'm like, there you go. But it is. I truly believe. I mean, thank you for those encouraging words and for those kind words, and just a reminder to be kind to myself and to be kind. Everybody, be kind to yourself as well and your body, and starting small. If you do it for 1 minute, then just increase in
Yeah.
intervals of 1 minute, and before you know it, you're gonna have 20 minutes, and you're gonna be like, man, I just rocked that for 20 minutes and don't even know where it came from. Um,
Absolutely.
so thank you. Sly wanted. I don't know if you've seen his. I'm glad
Yes.
more people are seeing that 20 years of talk therapy is not working anymore in a lot of cases, bringing in a lot
Yeah.
of somatic, or not a lot, but a lot of different movement, a lot of other stuff, and things like that too. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So
we're whole people. Again, we're not
anything
brains
else?
on a stick.
Yeah.
And there's beauty
Right.
about talking, right? Like it's not a bad thing by any means. But for trauma, especially complex trauma, I don't know that it being the only thing is the best, truthfully.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for saying that, because I think sometimes people don't understand when we say those types of things. They don't understand and things like that. So it's just nice to hear other therapists actually, saying it and you understand what complex trauma is, and things like that too. So yeah. So thank you. I've really enjoyed having you on here. I'm excited to go and pre-order your book. I know Piggy said she was going to pre-order your book and things like that too. And it's always nice just to hear things from different perspectives, coming from the practical side, but also coming from the spiritual side, and things like that too. So I really appreciate everything that you're doing to train up new therapists to really help get this, get the trauma survivors, complex trauma, whatever you're doing, in the trauma community, to really help people on their healing journeys and things like that, healing and recovery. So thank you again for all that you do. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see where this leads, where you lead, and things like that. And I know tonight, I know I was blessed having you on here and the things that you've taught me and the knowledge that I've gained this evening. So thank you. And I'm sure there's other people that gain the same knowledge and understanding and things as well. So if we don't have anything else, we have been on here for about an hour and 20 minutes. Really, really good conversation. Next week, if nobody else has any questions, let me see what we're doing for next week. Let me get out my calendar here. So next week is cognitive restructuring, cognitive distortions and overthinking. And so that will be what our topic is for next week. And then the week after, we'll probably have some more conference people on there as well. I will put all of Tabitha's information down in the description. So if you'd like to work with her, if you'd like to work within her practice with, somebody else, you'll have all that information, the information about, how to get a hold of her for upcoming retreats, online groups, anything pertaining to things that we talked about tonight. I'll have it all in the description below. So thanks again, everyone, for being here. We hope that you were touched and blessed with the information that you received. And as always, have a wonderful rest of your Monday, and we will see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.